Okay, in this video, we're going to look at various formatting options in Excel. Now remember, formatting doesn't change the content of the cell. So for example, if this cell says COM1, it's not going to change the actual value that's stored in the cell. If this has 5%, for example, formatting doesn't change those values. What it does change is the way it looks. So for example, under the Home tab, you can see there's a number of groups that relate to formatting. Let's start off by looking at this font group. So the first thing to do is to select the range that you want to format. So let's assume I just selected these two cells, right? Clicking and dragging, highlighting both of them. The moment I did that, I can see that the bold, the B here represents the bold. And if you hover over it, it tells you what it is. It's already indented, which means that this text is already bolded. If I click it again, it will unbold it, and you can see now it looks normal. Clicking on the I is for italics, clicking for the U is to underline it. So now you can see if I click on any cell, it'll tell me here, this one has got italics, it's got underlined, but no bolding. Right, on the underline side, you can also click on the drop down and select a double underline. So you can see that's what a double underline looks like, and that's what a single underline looks like. It shows the D here, but if I want to click back to the single underline, I can actually click on that drop down, and I can see here that the single underline is actually indented, which means that this particular cell does have the single underline formatting applied. I can click on it now to undo it. All right, so let's actually highlight them both again. Let's actually remove the italics, and let's actually put the bold on, and let's go ahead and remove the double underline as well by clicking on it. So that's just dealing with the bold, italics and underline. Then on this particular drop down, you can change the font. So when you click on this drop down, you'll see a whole lot of different fonts available. What I'm going to do here, just for the sake of simplicity, let's actually say we want to make it Arial narrow. And when I click on that, you can see this has now become Arial narrow. In fact, let's do that for the whole group of items. So let's drop down here and say we want to make it all. Now you can actually type it in. Let's say your font started with some letter at the bottom. Let's say we wanted to use something like, I don't know, Sun or something. So you can just type in the first few letters, SIM, SU, and you can see it'll pick it up. And now if I just hit enter, it actually changes it to that font. So if I click here, for example, and I just type in ARI, you can see it suggests Arial, and then I just hit enter, and it'll basically move it to the Arial font. You can also click on this drop down to change the font size. So you can see this makes it bigger, and we can actually leave it at a size 10, for example. All right, as you're actually hovering over the larger sizes, it actually shows you what it would look like. Obviously, you can see at a very large size, it's not fitting into the column, so we would have to resize columns if we were using a much larger font size. Okay, so I'll go back to 10 and click on that. These two particular icons, what they do is they just increase or decrease the font size. So instead of doing it over here, if I click on this increase size, you can see it's moved that to 11. If I click it again, 12, 13, and if I click on this one, it's just dropping it by 1. So it's effectively the same function as clicking a drop down, but it's moving it by 1 up or 1 down, depending on whether you choose the increase or the decrease. Then we have basically the full color. So this is what color do we want in the background. If I click on the drop down, it gives me all different colors. If I'm not happy with any color over here, I can click on more colors, and it opens up a full color palette, and I can select different colors from here. Let's say we wanted that pink, and if I say okay, you see it's actually filled it with that pink. If I want to remove the fill, I click on this drop down and I can select no fill, or obviously I could have changed the color, for example, to, let's say, that yellow over there. All right, so that's the fill. In terms of, let's highlight these two cells now and change the font color. So the font color is just the color of the actual text. So if I wanted to make that this blue, I click on it and you can see it's now a blue color over there. We then come to this option over here of the borders. Now, one of the things I do want to point out is that, whether we're going to look at fonts or alignments, numbers, these all relate to formatting. You'll see there's an expanded dialog icon at the bottom right. And when you click on that, it'll open up this format cells box, which has all the settings for formatting of cells. So you'll see a tab for numbers. So this number tab here relates to this one over here. So the ribbon is just giving you quick access to the same formatting options that are available in the format cells dialog box. Alignment, for example, is linked up to alignment over here. If you look at this font group in the ribbon, it's the same functions that are listed over here, and so forth. The border, which is this area, this particular function under font, that has its own section, which is here, which we'll look at, and so forth. And then you have the fill, which we basically looked at, you can see the full color is actually showing on this particular one that we just did the fill. So that option there is under this fill. And you can see, for example, there's more options under here in the format cells dialog box. So for example, when it says, okay, the pattern color is the one thing, but you can even have a style. So let's say we chose that style over there and I said, okay, you can see it's actually putting a pattern into the fill. Whereas when you looked at the normal drop here, it wasn't really, it's just giving you a quick option to change a color. Now, instead of actually clicking on this expand dialog box, if you highlight any range, it can be a single cell even highlighted, but if you highlight any range and you right click on that selected range, and you then go down and select format cells, you come to the same option over here, the same dialog box that I showed you from the text expander. And you can of course now go into, say for example, fill, and we say we wanted to change the pattern, let's say to that over there, and I say okay, you can see it's changed it across the board. One of the things, so let's actually remove it. So we would right click on it, highlighting the area, go back to format cells, and then under pattern we would just use the blank pattern and say okay, and now we're back to the blank pattern. Let's also highlight these cells and go back into the format cells dialog box, and under the font, besides just the selection of the font, which we were able to do from here, and the font styles and the sizes, you also basically have these effects, right? So you could, for example, have a strike through effect or a superscript. So just to show you, if you do a strike through, it shows you that it will actually put a line through, like you strike through the text. So if you ever want that effect, you can find it here. A superscript basically moves it up. So let's just do that. If I click on OK, you can see it's actually made it smaller and moved it up in the cell. If I then go into the text expander, and if I choose the subscript, let's turn off the superscript and let's select subscript. You see you can't obviously select both super and sub. Subscript is at the bottom, so it moves it at the bottom and makes it smaller. And if we go into, we can obviously turn that off and then strike through just to show you. If I click on OK, it's basically going to put a line through the text. Let's basically now go ahead and remove that. So this is where you effectively see all the options for your font.